Democrats, meantime, are still scratching their heads, trying to figure out what went wrong with President-elect Trump and Republicans across the board, gaining, obviously, so much ground in the election. Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman telling the New York Times he wants Democrats to stop freaking out. He went on to add that his party can't underestimate the pull that figures like Joe Rogan have on young voters. Here to weigh in, Julian Epstein, the founder and CEO of the Center for Industrial Progress. Great to see you as always, Julian. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. You have been one of those sounding the alarm among fellow Democrats for a long time that they just weren't reading the mood of the nation. So what should they read now? How should they listen to you and get it right in 4 years' time?
Well, thank you, Jonathan. Thanks for having me on. And yes, you're correct. We have spoken many times in the last year or two about what the Democrats were doing wrong. And Democrats in their postmortem are sort of talking about these things. They had the wrong candidate and their policies were wrong. And sort of all of those things are right. The Democrats need better candidates and they need to move back to the center on economic and cultural policies. But my point has been that there is a deeper cultural problem with the left and with the Democratic Party. And it's a party of wokeness and it's a party of moral condescension. So on your previous segment where you were talking about immigration, what the left has done is they have said to people, if you disagree with us on open borders, then you're a bad person. And what that has done is it has caused the left to shut its ears and to stop listening to people. And it's made it a lot dumber. It makes them feel good amongst themselves. It helps them achieve social status amongst fellow progressives. But it has made them a lot more tuned out to what the country is saying, and it has made them ineffective. And I think, and a big reason, I think, for the loss. And what the Democrats have to do is cast away this sort of culture of moral condescension and talking down to people and start listening. And, you saw it, we talked about this with all the expression of the use of the words fascism and end of democracy. People just tuned out to that stuff. They don't believe it, and they don't like the moral condescension. And
I wonder if that is what you think that John Fetterman might be getting at. In his quote, part of his article with the New York Times, or interview with the New York Times, he said this: "I'm just saying, buckle up and pack a lunch, because it's going to be 4 years of this. And if you have a choice to freak out, on the hour, then that's your right, but I will not. If you freak out on everything, you lose any kind of relevance." Do you think that's what a lot of Democrats have been doing since Election Day, freaking out? And do they need, as John Fetterman says, to stop doing it?
I think they do need to stop freaking out. And I think the writing has been on the walls, as you and I have discussed many times, with not just the policy on the economy and on all the cultural issues, even things like the Green New Deal, has been out of step with where the voters were. And I think they didn't listen to all of the data that showed that. I think, as I said, the candidates were wrong. But I think that the Democrats are going to have to do things like going on Joe Rogan's podcast. The fact that you had a few woke staffers inside the Harris campaign saying it might offend fellow progressives going on is lunacy. And it's exactly the type of place you ought to be going. If you look at why working class voters, and particularly men, have shifted Republican, you can look at immigration, you can look at unfair trade, and you can see how working class voters and people that work with their hands have been disadvantaged by this sort of neoliberal consensus of the last 2 decades, and why there's such a rebelling against it. And again, what the progressive left does is says you're a bad person. That sort of covers up for their luxury beliefs. Immigration helps the elites a great deal by providing them a low-cost servant class. It allows them to shut down the conversation by saying, how dare you question me? You're a bad person if you question me. And it's a way of achieving greater social status in the faculty lounges. And all of these things are sort of an echo chamber in the progressive class, but it makes them very stupid and very insulated and very out of touch with the concerns of particularly working class men who shifted away from the Democratic Party. So it's not helping the party. It's a cultural problem is the point that I'm making.
All right, Julian, great to see you as always, and I would recommend everybody to go to the New York Post website, check out your op-ed, which was all about the Democrats remaining out of touch. Julian, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here.
Jonathan, thank you for having me.